My name is Caroline. I'm 35 and in my third year of marriage, juggling life as a working mom. I've known my husband since we were kids. We hadn't been in touch for many years since middle school, but we reconnected at a reunion and immediately clicked. Before we knew it, we were dating. Everything went smoothly in our relationship, and we naturally moved on to getting married. Both of us were in our mid-30s when we tied the knot, so we were already talking about having kids soon. Then, I got transferred. And guess what? The new office was near my husband's parents. My husband and his folks were thrilled. "Why don't we live together? It'll be easier when you guys have kids," they said. Now, it's not like I have a bad relationship with my in-laws, but I wanted to maintain some space, so I kindly declined. They seemed pretty disappointed. I felt guilty, but figured it's better for everyone to have some boundaries. My husband agreed, or so I thought. Looking back, that was the starting point for everything. Due to my job transfer, we had to rent a new apartment. My husband's commute went from 30 minutes to an hour. I felt bad for making his life harder, but he told me, "We're a team. Don't worry about it." I was glad to have such an understanding husband, yet my in-laws didn't see it that way. "How can you inconvenience your husband for your own needs? A good wife would never do that," they criticized. "Exactly, Derek is right. Don't you think you lack a sense of compassion for your husband?" Why were they butting in? We had made this decision together. Ever since I turned down their offer to live together, they've been giving me the cold shoulder. "Caroline, did you marry your job or what? Look, you're not getting any younger. Start thinking about having children. True happiness for a woman isn't found at work, it's in raising a family." Funny, because before we got married, they were all for me continuing my career, saying things like, "If our son is with a self-sufficient woman, we can rest easy." Can you believe how he's changed just because I said we shouldn't live with his parents? At first, my husband used to stand up for me, but now he's like, "Well, what Dad and Mom are saying makes sense." At this rate, what's even the point of us being married? He's actually started saying things like that, but that's not all. "No, you're too busy to cook? Fine, I'll eat at my parents' house," he says, and heads there more often than not. Sure, I've been working late since the job transfer. I've been doing my best with pre-made meals and takeout, but I guess that's not good enough for him. And then, the second I get home, the calls from my mother-in-law start. "What kind of wife can't even prepare a meal? Are you even aware you're married? You're just a freeloader." "Hold on, I make money too." She ends the conversation with, "From now on, we'll feed him, so do whatever you want." Taking care of your married son's meals, talk about helicopter parents. To begin with, my husband comes home at the same time every day. Shouldn't he be the one making dinner when I'm stuck at work? It's not just my in-laws. I'm also growing frustrated with my husband. Even with all these concerns, I still have one person on my side. "Hey, it's Uncle Caroline, how are you?" "I've been better." "What's wrong? You sound down." The caller was my late mother's real brother. I lost my parents in my 20s, so my uncle has been like a stand-in dad for me. I told my uncle in detail about my job transfer and my struggles with my in-laws. He listened to me intently, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. "My in-laws, huh? That's a real piece of work. You're telling me. It's like they're negating everything about me. Your husband's no better. He should be standing up for you." I know, right? It's just awful. When you're troubled or worried, nothing beats eating something delicious to take your mind off it. Come by sometime and I'll treat you to some good food. And bring your husband too. I'll give him a piece of my mind. My uncle owns a restaurant. When my parents were alive, we often dined at his place. Sounds good. We'll definitely stop by soon. Anytime, Caroline. If you're struggling, call me. All right, thanks, Uncle. Talking to Uncle made me feel so much better. It was a much-needed relief. One weekend, I was catching up on chores I couldn't get to during the week. My husband, meanwhile, was lounging on the sofa, doing nothing. "Hey, can you help out? I'm tired too." "Why? You're the woman. You should do it." What kind of logic is that? My mom never made my dad do chores. That's because she was a homemaker. I work full-time. What? You think you're better than my mom? That's not what I mean. You've become so unpleasant. Ever since he started spending more time with his parents, he's been so hostile towards me. If this continues, our marriage could be at risk. To be a good partner, I decided to adjust my work schedule to come home at a more reasonable time. I figured this would reduce my husband's visits to his parents' house and give us a chance to reevaluate our relationship. I had to admit, I'd been using work as an excuse not to be emotionally available to my husband. From then on, I'd make an effort to come home early, cook dinner, and spend quality time together. Things started to look up. My husband's frequent visits to his parents' house dwindled, and our normal routine seemed to return. Or so I thought. Then came the curveball from his parents. "Hey, Mom ordered steak delivery for tonight. Let's go eat there." "What? I've already prepared dinner." "But they have gone through the trouble of ordering. How could we say no?" "Well, I guess you're right." So my husband and I reluctantly decide to go to my in-laws. Getting cute all of a sudden, doesn't that seem a bit suspicious? Or is it just me who feels this way? Upon arriving at the in-laws, there was a plate from an upscale steak restaurant set out for each person, but there were only 3. "Welcome, let's eat," my mother-in-law says cheerfully, as if I'm not even there, only to my husband. "Ah, you made it. Today's steak is sirloin," my father-in-law chimed in, not even glancing my way, enjoying his steak and beer. Should I address this? I mustered the courage to speak. Where's mine?" Summoning up the courage, I finally speak out. My mother-in-law offers a creepy smile. "Well, that's odd. I ordered 4 steaks. Something must be wrong." My father-in-law is too engrossed in his meal to even look at me. As for my husband, he takes a bite of a steak, says delicious, then brushes off the issue. Maybe the steakhouse messed up the order. No big deal. Are you kidding me? So I'm the odd one out here? My mother-in-law tells such blatant lies, and my husband and father-in-law pretend not to notice. I'm amazed that adults can act so childishly, but I handle it all with a cool head. All right then, I'll be leaving. No one tries to stop me. Driving home from my in-laws, tears flood my cheeks. All I wanted was to get along with them. Why do I have to endure this? Unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. So I decided to take action. In secret, I had to keep up the appearance of being the perfect wife. I made sure to come home on time, prepared meals for my husband, and flawlessly handled all the chores. My husband continues to have dinner at his parents' house and sometimes even stays overnight. Our marriage is obviously on the rocks, but I stick to my role as a devoted wife. I'm waiting for the perfect opportunity, and it finally arrives. One day off, I get an unusual call from my mother-in-law. "It's been a while. How about some steak? I ordered delivery." It's rare for them to reach out to me, but I already knew what they were after. Even with my mean-spirited mother-in-law's devilish tone, I responded pleasantly. "Thank you. We'll be there," I say politely. My husband and I head to my in-laws' place. When we get there, sure enough, there are only 3 plates of steak. Well, just as I expected. When things go exactly as planned, it actually makes it easier to handle. "Where's mine?" I ask, just like before. "Oh, that's strange. I swear I ordered 4. I almost laugh at how staged her response is, but I hold back. "Are you sure you ordered 4? "What? You doubt me?" My mother-in-law's gaze sharpens. Sensing the tension, my husband intervenes. "Come on, maybe the steakhouse got it wrong. It's happened before. Don't get so upset. You'll get wrinkles." My in-laws burst into laughter at my husband's lame joke. "Caroline, you've been looking a bit aged lately. Don't lose your femininity, always buried in work." Coming from a woman with far more wrinkles than me, that's unexpected. "You must remember your role as a wife. Always strive to look beautiful," my father-in-law adds, stuck in another era, as if they were the ones in the right. Time to set things straight. Frustration boiling over, I finally burst out loud. "Unbelievable. What's wrong with the steakhouse messing up our order time and time again? They can't be serious." "Yep, I'm calling them right now." I made a big fuss and called the steakhouse using my in-laws' phone. "Hello. Can't you even take an order correctly? You're always messing up the quantity. Isn't that pretty unprofessional? Thanks to you, I always end up missing out on my steak. How do you plan on making it right?" Both my husband and in-laws were speechless at my actions. Okay, got it. We'll be right over. With things settled, I turned to my mother-in-law. The steakhouse wants to apologize. How about we go there right now? Mother-in-law? Apologize? Yes, they said they want to apologize in person for messing up our order so many times. They can't come now because they're open for business. So they asked if we could go to them. It's really a rude place, but they're willing to apologize. Let's go. This is just outrageous. Mother-in-law was flustered by my fiery tone, but I didn't care. It's the restaurant's fault, isn't it? Mother-in-law, Caroline, you're blowing this way out of proportion. Just stop it. Me. Why should I? They messed up, not me. I've missed out on steak twice now. Isn't that weird? Mother-in-law, don't be irrational. It's embarrassing. Me. What are you talking about? I have a legitimate complaint here. Mother-in-law, you surely wouldn't forget to order my portion, right? Me. Yes, of course. Then let's go get that apology, shall we? I pulled my visibly shaking mother-in-law and we headed towards the restaurant. My father-in-law and husband also followed, sensing that this was no small matter. Time for a little payback. As we entered, a few customers were inside, and a man who appeared to be the master was grilling steaks behind the counter. Me. I was the one who called earlier. Upon hearing this, the master came out from behind the counter to face us. Me. I would like an apology for the messed up orders. I prepared the quantity exactly as I was told. In response to the master's words, I feigned utter surprise. The patrons around us started murmuring, but I didn't mind. Everything had gone as planned so far. Time for the grand finale. Me. So, you're saying, mother-in-law, that you didn't even order food for me? Your daughter-in-law? Why would you do that? Is this some sort of spite? Mother-in-law looked visibly rattled by my accusation. She never expected me, the wife, to fire back like this. Mother-in-law. No, that's not it. I genuinely made a mistake. But the waiter said everything was according to the order. I simply miscounted the number of dishes. Me. All right, can we go home now? Mother-in-law. What? Are you confused? 3 with 4? Are you showing signs of dementia? Me. That's way out of line. My father-in-law raised his voice, but I didn't back down. Me. It's not normal to mix up 3 and 4. Just admit you did it to spite me. Everyone makes mistakes, can't you understand that? Mother-in-law. This goes way beyond a simple mistake, given your usual behavior towards me. It's only natural to suspect it was intentional. Mother-in-law, apparently offended by the dementia remark, readily admitted her wrongdoing. Mother-in-law. Yes, fine. I don't like you, so I did it to spite you. Me. I can't believe this. Aren't you ashamed to act like such a child? Didn't you learn in school not to do things that others dislike? This is not something a grown adult, let alone a senior, should be doing. Cornered by my logic, mother-in-law had no retort. Both my husband and father-in-law seemed stunned into silence. And as the icing on the cake, the other customers in the restaurant began to voice their support. Customer. Deliberate spite? Wow. Didn't think that still happened. I can't believe it's them. Better keep my distance from now on. Mother-in-law looked shocked. No wonder why most of the patrons in the restaurant lived in the same neighborhood as my in-laws. No, wait, there's an explanation for too late. Feeling increasingly uncomfortable, the 3 of them hastily left the restaurant. Me. That was awesome. The master patted me on the shoulder. Master. Sorry to drag you into this, uncle. Turns out the steakhouse was actually owned by my uncle. I initially missed the restaurant's name, but later noticed it on a delivery bag. I'm really lucky, I guess, which made plotting this revenge quite easy. Whenever my in-laws invited me for steak, it was usually on the weekend following their pension payment. I had asked for my uncle's help to plan accordingly for this specific day. We even added some improvisational moments from regular customers my uncle knew well. My uncle had appealed. My dear niece is enduring persistent harassment. I could use your help. Thankfully, they were more than willing to play along. Having many of the in-laws' neighbors present really gave our plan a major boost. Me. I wonder what kind of faces they're making right now. The thought alone kept me laughing. Eventually, my husband and I divorced. Despite my efforts to mend our relationship, it was clear he wasn't interested. So, the path to divorce was pretty smooth. Luckily, as the one who caused the divorce, he didn't have much of a say in the negotiations. So, my meticulous plan, the good wife, aimed at revenge, Worked like a charm. Later, I got a call from my ex-husband. He had moved back in with his parents and was shocked at how uncomfortable it was. Ex-husband. Small towns, you know. Gossip spreads fast. Mom gets cold stares wherever she goes, and for some reason, I'm being shunned too. Me. Why? He wonders. The reason is pretty clear. Anyone who joins in the bullying with his annoying parents deserves to be avoided. You're clueless. You're clueless. This is all coming back to haunt you. Enjoy your time with mom and dad in your small town. Just be careful not to get kicked out by the community. Ex-husband. What do you mean kicked out by the community? I wanted to tell him to figure it out himself, but I don't owe this fool any more of my time. I quietly hung up. His parents are trying to marry him off again by taking him to all sorts of matchmaking parties. But for some reason, it's not working out. Me. I mean, can you blame them? Uncle. Caroline. You've got to find happiness, not just for yourself, but for your late parents too. My uncle said, grilling a sirloin steak across the counter. My latest indulgence is treating myself once a week at my uncle's place. Me. Thank you, uncle. I can feel the tears coming. It must be too much pepper. It was a night where my uncle's kindness touched my heart.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked. We could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1, if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread. hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.